What if your king could heal you just by touching you? Or a room full of nobles had to watch a queen give birth to prove the baby was real? These sound like rumors. They were official royal traditions, practiced for centuries and taken completely seriously. Today we're exploring some of the most bizarre royal traditions in history, not for shock value, but to understand how power, belief, and symbolism shaped entire societies. Let's begin with a tradition where monarchy claimed divine medical authority. First, when kings were expected to cure disease. For hundreds of years in medieval and early modern Europe, people believed in something called the royal touch. In England and France, kings were thought to have the God-given ability to heal a disease known as scrofula, a form of tuberculosis that caused swollen lymph nodes and sores. The illness was even called the king's evil. The ritual was formal and public. Sufferers lined up by the hundreds. The monarch touched their necks or faces and often gave them a coin or charm to wear. English and French kings performed this ritual regularly from the Middle Ages into the 18th century. Charles II of England reportedly touched tens of thousands of people during his reign. The cause wasn't medical, it was political. If a king could heal disease, it reinforced the idea that his authority came directly from God. This was divine right made visible. The consequences were powerful. Even as medical science advanced, rejecting the ritual could look like rejecting the monarchy itself. When Enlightenment thinking spread, the decline of the royal touch symbolized the decline of sacred kingship. It matters today because it shows how authority often relies on performance, not proof. Even now, leaders gain legitimacy through symbolic acts meant to inspire trust beyond evidence. Next, the royal job that sounds fake, but was deadly serious. In the English royal court, one of the most trusted positions was called the groom of the stool. Despite the name, this wasn't an insult, it was an honor. The groom of the stool was responsible for assisting the king with his most private bodily functions, literally managing the monarch's toilet routine, clothing, and personal hygiene. Why would anyone want this job? Because privacy meant access. This position allowed constant, intimate contact with the king. Over time, grooms of the stool became powerful political figures, handling correspondence, finances, and confidential discussions. The role existed from the Tudor period through the 18th century. Some grooms became key advisors and power brokers, despite, or maybe even because of, their unusual duties. The cause was simple. In a court full of spies and rivals, trust mattered more than dignity. The consequence was a political system where proximity to power outweighed formal titles. This tradition still matters because it reminds us that influence doesn't always come from official roles. Even today, aides assistants and gatekeepers often wield more power than their titles suggest. Now, the tradition that turned childbirth into a public event. In royal France, queens didn't give birth in private, they gave birth in public. From the 17th century onward, French queens were required to deliver their children in rooms filled with nobles, courtiers, and officials. Sometimes dozens of people were present. The reason was fear of deception. Royal succession was everything. Rumors that a baby had been secretly swapped or that an heir wasn't legitimate could destabilize the entire kingdom. Public birth was meant to eliminate doubt. The most famous example is Marie Antoinette, whose labor in 1778 reportedly drew so many spectators that the room overheated and people fainted. The chaos made the birth more dangerous, not safer. The consequence was clear: the Queen's body became state property. This tradition mattered because it shows how monarchy treated reproduction as politics. Personal privacy was sacrificed to protect legitimacy. Even today, public scrutiny of royal families, birth announcements, heirs and bloodlines follows the same logic, just in a modern form. So what do these traditions actually tell us? They show that monarchy wasn't just about ruling, it was about belief. Royal power depended on rituals that made authority visible, turned private life into public proof and reinforced hierarchy through spectacle. These traditions worked because people believed in them, or were expected to. They also remind us that power often survives not through logic, but through repetition, symbolism, and social pressure. Understanding these practices helps us recognize how authority still operates today, even without crowns. Ceremonies, optics, and traditions still shape trust in leadership. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the strange rituals of royalty, like the video, subscribe for more serious history, and watch the next episode where we explore historical laws that sound fake, but were brutally enforced.